One thing you'll notice about this book is that it has a huge cast of characters, and with it, a seeming inability to focus on any one of them for any length of time.
There are so many subplots, and the narrative switches between them with such alarming regularity that it can barely be said to have a real plot, just a bunch of different subplots of varying relevance disjointedly stitched together into a crude tapestry to give the illusion of a real plot.
As with so many of the book's flaws, what makes this especially egregious is that it wasn't present in either of the previous instalments. In fact, one of their greatest strengths was their taut pacing.
Anyway, in this chapter, the witch, Seraphina Pekkala, visits Yorick Bernison to inform him that his friend, the badass aeronaut Lee Scoresby, is dead. There's no real point to this chapter other than to remind us that Lee Scoresby is dead, which Pullman could have done much more simply and effectively just by including a short recap at the start. But hey, you got to pad out the length somehow or other, right? It does have one glorious redeeming value, however, and that is Yorick Bernison.
Yorick Bernison is, to put it lightly, a bona fide crowning moment of awesome in Ursine form. Not only is he an armoured polar bear warrior, the mere concept of which is epic enough to cure Chuck Norris of constipation, he's also king of an entire race of armoured polar bear warriors. That's right, an armoured polar bear warrior king. And he once killed another armoured polar bear warrior king by ripping his jaw off.
Sadly, he doesn't do anything awesome here. All he does is go to where Lee Scoresby's corpse is and eat it. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Pullman. We totally needed that. Ew.
Seriously though, who cares? He's an armoured polar bear warrior king. He's awesome by default. He doesn't have to do anything to be awesome. He just is. Heck, he could spend the whole book jerking off to porn, and he'd still be the best damn thing in it by far.
After that, we cut again. See, I told you, this time to Arma, the little girl from the first chapter. She visits a shaman, who gives her a remedy to wake Lyra from her coma. When she gets back to the cave, however, she oversees Mrs. Coulter force-feeding Lyra a potion, and it turns out that the reason why Lyra is in the coma is because she's being drugged. Then we cut to Lord Asriel's fortress, where he's preparing to wage war against God. When Brooke arrives, he's badly injured, having had a run-in with God's underlings on the way there. He's taken to see Lord Asriel, and manages to tell him about Will and Lyra before kicking the bucket. Given that he's supposed to be so weak he ends up getting done in by a draft, it's amazing he's nonetheless able to provide 3 pages, in hardback, of remarkably clear and concise exposition beforehand.
Also, notice how one of the token gay couple is the first character to die? Hooray for progression!
Then, you guessed it, we cut again to Lyra's universe, where we're introduced to the Magisterium. The Magisterium is an evil religious organisation, a term Pullman would have us believe is redundant, that's so obviously meant to be the Roman Catholic Church, or at any rate the Spanish Inquisition type strawman version of it that exists in Pullman's imagination, that, like with the Judeo-Christian God, he doesn't even bother filing the serial numbers off, though this time he isn't quite so explicit.
Sadly, this Spanish Inquisition is exactly what you would expect. A bunch of fire and brimstone fanatics who are willing to do anything in the name of the Lord, and that is the full extent of their characterisation.
Pullman could still have made them interesting by portraying them as well-intentioned, just misguided, but this angle is never touched upon, which is a shame because he's usually really good at creating complex villains. Basically, their main objectives are to destroy dust, a kind of magical invisible particle which they believe is responsible for original sin, and kill Lyra, who is prophesied to fall after being tempted, and lead the rest of the multiverse to ruin.
The last one in particular I want you to take note of. See how the language used is evocative of the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden? Be warned, because that parallel is going to come back to haunt us, and it is going to be very nasty indeed.
And, surprise surprise, we cut again, this time to Mary Malone, a scientist from Will's world, that is to say ours, who, at the end of the subtle knife, found a door to another dimension. Here, having gone through it, she sets about exploring the multiverse. After a few weeks, she arrives at an alien world completely unlike either ours or Lyra's, where evolution itself has taken a radically different turn. That actually sounds really interesting, doesn't it? Well, it can hardly be said to be mundane, that's for sure. In fact, it can hardly be said to be anything, because what we get is so bizarre that it defies description. It's neither good nor bad nor anywhere else on the spectrum. It's completely outside all that, in a world of its own, a world of pure, unadulterated weird, the likes of which only 70s musicians and Hunter S. Thompson have looked upon and lived to tell the tale. But what is it, I hear you ask? Okay, here goes, and I strongly suggest you get a copy of the book to see for yourself, because you're really not going to believe me otherwise.
Elephants on wheels. Yes, you heard me. Elephants on wheels. To elaborate, they have one leg at either end and two in the middle. Each of the legs at the end is inserted into a giant coconut, and the legs in the middle are used to push them along the ground like a scooter. Oh yeah, and they're sentient and use sign language.
Okay, moving on. We cut to Will and Balthamus, for which I am for once grateful. They're back in Lyra's universe, in what is apparently Russia.
In alternate universe Russia, book throws you!
In Lyra's universe, people's souls manifest as creatures called demons, which are bonded to them and have the power to shapeshift into any animal they please until they hit puberty, whereupon they settle into a specific form. Will doesn't have a demon since he's from our universe, and has to have Balthamus disguise himself as one so he won't be viewed as a freak. Balthamus somehow senses Brooke's death and flies into a frenzy of grief, which, although powerfully written, fails to be touching because A, both these characters have done sweet bugger all besides provide exposition, and B, we haven't even known them for more than 2 chapters. Eventually, they reach a grubby little town, where we're treated to yet another truly bizarre scene that comes right out of left field and seems determined to outdo the wheeled elephants in terms of craziness. A strange priest approaches Will, to whom he is very gregarious, in an awkward, over-the-top sort of way, even going so far as to invite him into his house. Yeah, I don't think I like where this is going. I mean, really, a creepy Catholic priest talking a preteen boy into coming home with him in a book written by a man with an outspoken hatred for organised religion in general and Catholicism in particular. Ugh! Do I even need to explain why that just screams wrong on so many levels? Everything about it is dodgy. Then he forces him to drink some vodka. Get it? Because he's Russian, and Russians always drunk on vodka.
Good to know that even in other dimensions, national stereotypes are true. As are religious stereotypes, it would seem, because the priest then goes on to hug him. No! No! Do not want! Ah!
Mercifully, Will leaves, and the creepy, disgusting priest is never seen again, which makes the whole scene completely and utterly pointless. In fact, neither he nor the incident are even mentioned again. Seriously, Mr. Pullman, it's not even worth debating the message you're trying to get across, because I've figured out by now that you probably live in one of these alternate universes. One in which there are lots of pedo-priests because paedophilia is somehow a predicate of being a priest, and not because sexual predators tend to seek out positions that give them easy access to their prey. But if you had to include it, why the Belgium did you have to include it here? Why derail the narrative any more than you already have?
Ah well, that's it for me this week. Until next time, thanks for watching, and goodbye!
First you get down on your knees, fiddle with your rosaries, bow your head with great respect and genuflect, genuflect, genuflect. Do whatever steps you want if you have cleared them with the pontiff. Everybody say his own Kyrie eleison, doing the Vatican right.